Yo, what's up guys, it's Brian, and today I want to share with you my DMT experience. So let me preface this by saying DMT is intense. It will take you out of your body. You will not be the same you will not be a human anymore. So just prefacing this by saying this is very serious, this is a medicine, this is for spiritual journeys, and I do not advocate the use of this as a fun recreational drug just to laugh. So with that being said, I'm gonna jump into my experience with DMT because it was quite fascinating. It was not at all what I had expected, which is awesome, but it revealed to me a lot of issues that I had and a lot of different ways to change different patterns that now, looking in the future, I can look back and see, wow, I really put this into action, and I really feel like I understand what this trip was showing me. So I'm going to break this video into two parts because this is an intense subject. I'm going to start with my actual experience and the whole trip, and then I'm going to move into my self-reflection and what I feel like I gained from it due to what this experience was showing me. So without further ado, DMT, dimethyltryptamine. I had been curious about it because, just experimenting with different psychedelics, looking for soul growth, just opening my mind up to what everything out in the universe is. I want to preface it by saying I started from this place of, I wanted growth out of it. I wasn't looking to have fun. I wasn't looking to do it as a party thing. I wanted growth. I wanted to understand myself more. I wanted to get past some of the suppressed trauma and all of that. And I feel like my trip really got me there. So the set and setting. This is a few years back, and I was back at my family's home. They live out in the forest, and I'm outside. It's like 8 or 9 at night, and I'm just sitting on a chair on the grass. So I've got my feet, planted on the ground, my body in the chair, and I'm with my brother, who in this case was like my shaman because he had experienced DMT before. He kind of gave me his perspective on it. I've also, was in checking out DMT, the spirit molecule. So I did a lot of research going into it, and I knew that this was a very intense medicine that had the ability to show me more about who I was. So I'm in this chair, and I start smoking out of a bowl. So I have the DMT in it with some bud, and 2 hits in, and that's when I really am starting to feel completely different. And I can feel every cell in my body just activate, and everything is just alive, And that's when I start noticing these triangle fractals just spiraling out from my chest and my body in all these directions. And I remember this as I was passing the bowl back to my brother so I could get out of my hands. I remember as it happened, I was like, whoa, I could just see so much new light and just all these fractals, and it was so beautiful. And the feeling I felt in my body was just complete connection, complete power. I felt like Goku turning into a Super Saiyan. It was awesome. So what happens is my eyes get super heavy, and then I start kind of seeing out of my third eye. I'm having these visions of me. I'm in this this room with a bookshelf now. It's it appears to be a library. And the best way I can describe it is I'm on the one corner, and in the back of the other side of the wall, there is, say the ceiling is 8 feet, for example. 7 feet of that is actually a bookshelf blocking that other side of the room. But I could see in that top, say 1 foot, there are these 2 entities in the corners, and they look like cartoons, just really rudimentary lines and shapes, and everything was so just the proportions were just crazy, as they're reaching out to me, their arm would get super long, and things were weird and wacky. And so my first thought was, I want to go on the other side of the bookshelf because I felt drawn to it. And immediately as I had that thought, I had a thought, which the best way I can describe it is it was implanted in me, right? And that's what I feel real telepathy is. It's you're not communicating with your mouth. You don't hear them, you just feel. It's I felt this message that basically said yeah, I have to basically smoke more and do more to get on that other side. So that's what I did. I opened my eyes back up. I took that third hit, and that's when I was just like gone. It all clicked. I could kind of, looking back now, like that was the breakthrough moment, because, I find myself, next thing you know, I'm in these series of tunnels. And the first one is just beautiful fractals, all this energy and light moving and twisting around me and all this. And so at this point, I'm no longer Bryan. I don't have a sense of like identity. I am just awareness, just being, it really feels like I'm being moved through these tunnels or these worlds or these structures. And it's almost like I'm on a track, I feel like I'm moving through this place. So, the first one, fractals, beautiful and just, amazing. And just, oh my God, so much is happening that you like literally I can't even think. I'm only reacting. And half the time it's out of just awe or fear, so it's all of that, or confusion. And, the next part, I see myself in this, this next tunnel, best way I can describe it, this whole world of like, so hard to explain this, but everything looked like a biological machine, like the inside of a body almost, but like it wasn't like your normal organs and stuff, but it looked like tissues and things, but there were gears and these things like like pumping and doing all this just it's so crazy. It's so hard for me to like put it into like words. But yeah, I'm thinking like just gears and stuff that's made out of like blood and tissues and like organs, like very biological. And I remember as I'm in here, I'm like, I see this sprocket, like a gear, and one of the little teeth on the gear, my awareness zooms into it and I see that it's like an actual being. It almost like, if I had to try to explain it, it almost looked like maybe a snail's head, like really long and like maybe like some antennae at the top. And I remember like zooming into it and it's like right here. And I had this, the realization like, oh my God, this is like, this is conscious. This is sentient. That one little tooth on that gear has its own awareness. So I'm like, so everything around me I realize is alive, and there's also these separate perspectives, and that was intense. So the next thing you know, I'm in this next tunnel or this next room, and this one was probably the most, I guess, similar to what I've seen, because this one felt like a building. It felt like it was constructed in some other dimension. I had a little bit more reference experience with this because I felt like I was in this like constructed building with, like super high ceilings, and there were these pillars with like these vases and these art pieces on them on each side and things. And just this whole place is like blue and mosaic. So, I mean, if we think about like the wall behind us, each little piece made out of like a separate picture or something like that, and it was just so much information to comprehend. I'm assuming probably all those little pieces I've seen are all like separate realities in themselves, but I'm just being pulled through this. And by the time I get to the end of this this room, this is where everything just goes like this giant head of this being comes out, and it's like I felt like it was feminine, like I felt like it was a female energy, but it was like a half person, half snake-like being, blue, and again, when you think about like if you look at my face and all the pores and the hairs, I mean, imagine each one of those being like a mosaic piece that all puts together this one image, but yet all these images, all these little pieces are separate, either photos or videos or realities or just whatever. So the overall feeling I remember was just feeling like completely entranced and like seduced by this energy, just drawn into its pure beauty and power. So it opens its mouth, and then this tongue slithers out, and I go in its mouth. Again, I have no recollection of like who Bryan is on Earth or what Earth is. I'm just purely just experiencing all this from the state of just like just consciousness and just like awareness. So now I go into this mouth of this being, and I find myself in this complete void. And when I say void, I mean like there's no movement, there's no direction, because there's no light. So there's no ability to say this is left or this is right. There is no duality. There's just like blackness. And I do remember feeling other spirits and beings around me and moving, and I couldn't see them. I was like stuck. It felt like I was a stone now, because I just experienced all this just craziness, and all of a sudden now it's just black, and it's just complete darkness. So I felt like the other entities saw me or felt me, but I couldn't see them. I could feel them, but I had that sense of like, I'm in their world, I'm in their territory, like I'm not supposed to be here. And, so the sheer terror of this, again, I can't put any of this into time, because this whole experience is 15 minutes, but who knows how long it felt like in that moment. Like it could have been days, weeks, months, I don't even know, but it was just boom, boom, boom. And I get, before I know it, I just get, I'm being pulled up into a sky. So now I see that there's a sky now. So I'm being shot up like 300, 400, 500 miles an hour, just like a rocket. And I look back down and I see, I'm seeing where I was coming from. And I see these like huge pyramids. They're super deep, dark, metallic blue, like almost black, but still like midnight blue, just kind of radiating, pulsing this like blue energy. But I mean, only maybe the tops of the pyramids were not covered by this dark black fog or a mist that's covering up most of what would be perceived as above the land. So the tips of these pyramids were out, but I could see that everything was covered in this darkness. So I'm looking down, and like the sheer terror of that was crazy enough. And then I look up to see what's really happening, and those two entities that were in that first room with the bookshelf, the ones that were reaching out towards me, who looked like cartoon characters, they didn't look like cartoon characters anymore, but I knew it was them because I knew they were my guides. I could feel it. I could feel that I was safe in a sense. But I look up and they are angels, and they're flying me up. They're pulling me up. I'm just being rocketed towards the sky, towards this beautiful, everything is white, and it's just this white light all around me. And I'm just like holding on, and I'm like, I remember when I made that first request, I was like, between that and looking down at where I was and what I would say was like hell, I was like, please don't let me go. Don't let me go. And they said, you're not ready yet. And then I was dropped. And then I come back into my body on earth. Here I am now, my parents' backyard outside, and I'm back. And it's just, all this happened so quick. So I'm like out of breath. I'm like, I'm like, what do I do? At this time my brother was inside because he was just letting me do my own thing, just giving me some peace. He knew I was out on this experience. And the first thought I had, I really feel like this was from my heart. But my heart was telling me, like, you're on earth now. You're good. You're here. You know where you are. You're Bryan. You're good. Lay down on the ground, attune yourself to the natural vibration of the earth, and just relax. Just let your heart beat. Let's just take a deep breath. So I was telling myself this. So I lay down on the ground. So I start taking nice deep breaths, feeling a lot better. And this is the most beautiful thing about this experience that I feel, because this goes beyond the actual trip itself, because this is when I'm back in my body. But my parents have a few random little lights out, so even when it's night out, there's still light being projected on areas of the trees and stuff. And it sounds so crazy because this wasn't even part of the trip, right? But I mean, I guess it was, because I'm back. But I look up, and the canopy of the trees and the branches that are above me, the way the light is hitting that canopy, I see this perfect silhouette of just a a newborn baby in the fetus position, just in the trees, made up of the shadow and the light. And it was just awe. I was just in awe, because it's one of those things that I'm like telling myself, am I seeing this? Or like, so I asked myself that question like twice. I'm like, dude, that's a baby up there. And it was just mind blowing. And I just felt like it was a miracle in a sense. I felt like it was just this beautiful sign of rebirth. It just made me feel so good and just felt so anew. And I'd been through so much in the previous year or two. That was just this huge sign to me that just showed me like, you can start fresh now, like you're good. So yeah, let's move into, that was a lot. That was my experience, but let me move into the second part of this, where I want to actually reflect on what all this really meant to me, what I felt like, these entities appeared as, and how symbolic it was for my life, and how I was able to grow from it and use this situation to my advantage. So after this experience, I feel like I put a lot of this into practice, because I was able to reflect and say like, okay, why did these things happen? So, the first major thing was, I feel like with this DMT experience, we're accessing either more of what is around us already on this planet in just different dimensions, or we're being just taken to another aspect of the universe, which essentially could be millions and millions and millions of miles away. It could be a different universe. It could be, it's basically, as far as like from a quantum physics standpoint, I believe that it could be anywhere, whether we're here or we're super far away. Either way, I believe that this is a medicine, because it is an inherent part of nature. It shows us more of what we're doing on this planet, as just beyond just human beings, just like consuming and just living and metabolizing and reproducing. Like, what it's showing us more about what actually is going on in the universe. Because especially after this experience, I feel like I died because I didn't have my sense of, oh, I'm Bryan. So it kind of corroborates all of my feelings of past lives and things like that, because I now know that I'm able to incarnate without knowing I'm Bryan, so I feel like I have that proof now. So I've been able to look at death much differently, because I know, not just believe, but I really truly feel like I know that when someone passes on, their spirit, their consciousness is still alive. It's still aware. Their physical body isn't, but they're still alive. Their energy maintains and exists forever, Alpha and Omega. So that was beautiful to kind of see, because the overall just being shot out of my body, and now I'm just this awareness. It was scary, but when I look back on it, I'm like, that's kind of cool to know that I will exist beyond just being me. So the next major thing that I took from this was when I was in that mosaic room, and there was that being, that serpent-like being that seduced me, and I went into its mouth, and then now, I'm in this void that I refer to as hell in a sense. And that really showed me how I had been, easily just entranced in the past, or given my power away, and just, didn't follow my own virtues, didn't follow my own full beliefs, because I was, seduced by another person, or my desire to have their energy. Because it's not really about what the other person does. It's about what am I, if I'm attracting a very codependent relationship, a very unhealthy relationship, we have to ask ourselves, like, why? Why am I bringing this into my life? And it wasn't until I was able to get out of, say, a very unhealthy situation, that a month later I had this DMT experience, and then I was introduced to this being, this super seductive, beautiful, amazing being that pulled me in, ultimately bringing me to a place I didn't really feel like I wanted to be. And that really is kind of like an analogy for what I had been doing in my life, as far as desiring a relationship. And even though the situation wasn't perfect, even though it was like, I'm not, we're not bringing ourselves fully to the table, I'm still being seduced into it because of the desire and the need, the ego's need, the inner child's need to be accepted or to be loved. And essentially I was compromising who I was, and I wasn't creating anything beautiful. I was destroying things. I wasn't able to create things that would last. So after this experience, I kind of integrated that information, and I found myself, oddly enough, funny enough, how the world does this, patterns. I found myself in another situation that could have been just as unhealthy and as codependent as before, but I didn't fall prey to that energy, that serpent, seductive, beautiful energy that is not equal. And then a couple months after that, I re-met an old friend who's now my girlfriend, Jenny. We've been together for 3.5 years, and I attribute a lot of that to doing a lot of this soul growth, this inner work, not just through DMT, but just, of course, just paying attention to my own thoughts and feelings, writing stuff down and all of that. But I was able to make sure I don't allow those unhealthy situations in my life, and realize, what, I'm whole by myself. I don't need anyone or anything externally to prove my worth, So when it comes down to what am I seeking in my life, those things should really only be based off of like what I'm giving, not like, oh, I want this thing over there because of how I'll feel when I get it. I've realized, and I've been integrating that in regards to like how that's just not the way to do it, and that's what that situation showed me, and so the next part would be when the angels, pull me up, and they, I'm flying through the sky, and they say I'm not ready, and they drop me. And I took that as a positive thing as well, because, I'm not ready, to transition beyond this realm. I took it as I'm not ready to die physically on earth yet, meaning like I have something that I need to do, something that I'm here to do as far as my own karma, my own soul's path, my own timeline. So it was just a very, scary, confusing, awesome, beautiful, amazing, wonderful experience. And even though I wasn't sitting on the edge of the solar system, hanging out with a bunch of different like aliens and stuff, like repping Earth, chilling, like laid back with some drinks and some smokes, that didn't happen. I was just thrown in and like swallowed up and just like spit out and just all this. But how I look back on it now, it was this amazing experience. It helped me see so many different things in my life that were out of balance, so if someone's looking at this from a medicinal point of view, as far as a soul growth point of view, I would say keep doing your research with it. This is along with psilocybin, which is amazing as far as health and healing. And the reason I'm sharing this information and my experience is because I really feel like, these substances should not be illegal. I feel like they are allowing us to see what life really is. And I believe that they should be monitored under, a medicinal point of view. But, with the different research that's been going on with Johns Hopkins, with like psilocybin, I see so much potential. And of course, medical marijuana in our country, there's so much potential that is found in plants to help connect us back to nature and our root and why we're actually here. Like, what is the purpose of our lives? What are we doing? And I just feel it's such an amazing tool to understand that. So, if you have an open mind and an open heart, I'd say just keep doing your research. It is a beautiful tool that will allow you to awaken and see more about what's going on deep inside. But I appreciate y'all for hanging out with me and just hearing my point of view and my experiences. Feel free to just ask any questions too. I feel like I've remembered a lot of the key points from this. As soon as the experience was over, I told my brother about it. I told people back and forth, and I've done my best to retain the information, to not embellish it, to just be like upfront and honest about how I felt and what I've gained from it. So I appreciate y'all for hanging out and listening. I'm Bryan Divisions. Peace.